Thank you, Miles, is inclusion and women leadership in 2020. And thank you for joining us today. And I'll just share my screen very quickly. Welcome again. This is the third webinar hosted by PL Lab, and I'm Alicia. I'm an intern at PL Lab. I'm studying at the University of Chicago, and I'm in charge of hosting these educational events along with Miles. And Miles, if you would like to quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Miles, Chief Community Officer at PL Lab. Very excited to have this event, to have Alicia moderating, and to have Bauhinia, Natsumi, and Natalie joining us today to talk more about inclusion and women leadership. And I'm sure they'll introduce themselves in a little bit. So very excited about the event. Thank you for joining, everyone.
Okay, great. So moving on. Here are speakers today, and I think Bauhinia is running a little late. So if Natalie and Natsumi, you guys want to quickly introduce yourself?
I think Bauhinia is here.
Oh, is she here? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you're here.
So yes, go ahead.
Oh, sure. To introduce myself, do you want me to show a slide or shall I just go through? I'll go through it, don't worry. I'll show the slides later. Yeah, so I'm an impact venture builder. And very recently, I established Anima Ventures, which is Hong Kong's first venture studio focusing on women founders. Well, we don't specifically only invest in women founders, but with the teams that we look at, we really hope to see at least one female co-founder. And this is about women empowerment, so we'll talk more about that later. But yes, I'm absolutely passionate about diversity and empowering all sorts of diverse peoples in the startup and tech space and in the venture space too. And I used to have a background in finance and wealth management, and now I'm in startups and loving it.
Perfect. Sorry about the slide. Natalie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. So I'm the head of sustainability at Dorsett Hospitality International. And I started working here last March and started the sustainability department here. And I advise mostly on the group's ESG reporting and strategizing for the ESG vision and various charitable initiatives. So I think I'll share more later on. And I think I've been experienced in the hotel operations for a while now. So now it's now I'm in the corporate side.
Great. And Natsumi?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Natsumi. I'm co-founder of Water Design Japan. Obviously, we're based in Tokyo, Japan. So what we do is we solve clogged pipe and damages without using chemicals, but with the bubble technology. It's a nano-sized, very, very small bubble, and the bubble becomes the size of nano. It have a cleaning benefit. So we've been working with a lot of constructors, builder, factory cleaning, and even for like medical equipment cleaning. So this technology has been used more than 7,000 places in Japan, and right now we are expanding. So I am talking with a lot of like global people who's interested in this technology. So that's what I do. And my background is digital marketing, and I always work for different startups. And this is actually my third startup, and have my team. And yeah, so my interest is like very like heavily like sustainability and all that. So looking forward to the event today, and thank you for having me.
Okay, perfect. I think we have some very amazing speakers here today. And so let's just get started to the first question, which is, could you each just tell us a bit more about your business? So you guys all mentioned sort of a brief overview of it, but maybe how you got started and why, and major milestones that you had. And if you want to share a screen, then just let me know. And Bauhinia, would like to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Okay, so let me share screen.
Okay.
All right, I think you should all be able to see my screen now. As you can see, Anima Ventures is very new. I literally just started it. I mean, I've been planning it for a year or so. So I just started it, and we are a venture studio. Besides capital money, we also seek to use all of our resources, different partner networks. We act as outside consultants to really help startups get off the ground, because I'm sure, as you know, Natsumi will understand, go-to-market is one of the most difficult things for a startup. You know, the technology itself isn't always necessarily the hardest part, or building the product, but it's actually being able to find your product market fit and your first big client to get, you know, your revenues coming in, or at least to get really helpful user feedback so you can keep on refining. So that's the idea of being a venture builder or operating a venture studio. So our vision is really to, you know, we really believe that innovation in tech will shape and blend our world of work and living, as well as, you know, the advent of Web3, which is still very early stage in terms of infrastructure and knowing where it will lead us. But I really believe that innovation in tech and different business models will keep blending our work and lifestyles. So, you know, we look into any businesses, startups that are tech enabled that fit in this vision that we have. And our mission, as I was saying earlier, is really to expand founder diversity in our Hong Kong local startup talent pool and ecosystem, because we really care about building businesses with purpose, and it's not just about making profit. You know, it's not about choosing between impact and full profit anymore. I really think you can do both side by side and earn returns this way. So that's us in a nutshell. Milestones, I think we're all pretty young here, but, you know, judging by my fantastic panelists, I think everyone has some pretty amazing milestones. So I'll just briefly talk about a couple of mine. So I really got into startups properly in 2018. I got in contact with a global community and foundation called Sergal Foundation, which helps to bridge the funding gap for diverse entrepreneurs. I started the first chapter in Europe because I was based in London. And that's when I really got to understand what it's like to build a physical community, an online community, and really get to know all of the pain points and the joys of being an entrepreneur. Came back to Hong Kong, and I then went back to actually operating a startup and launched the Hong Kong and Taiwan markets for a Singapore HR tech startup. So it was a very steep learning curve because I was really working across teams remotely, managing different setups in Vietnam, in Indonesia, as well as in Taiwan. And obviously, since 2021 and 2022, I've been launching Anima Ventures. And this has always been my dream, to combine my aspirations of building my career and my passion in diversity, and combining the two to make it into a business. So this is currently what I'm doing. I can't call it a milestone yet, but I guess setting it up itself is a milestone, and finding supporters within the network. And this year as well in Hong Kong, I'm connecting with all of the different nonprofit organizations, different VCs, startup operators out there to establish an alliance for diversity in venture tech and startups. And we want to build a data report as well to launch this network. And then hopefully it's going to build towards having more initiatives to support our mission.
Yeah, that's so amazing, and you've come so far in such a short time. And thank you for going over that. And Natalie, if you want to go next, would you like to share your screen?
I don't have any slides, but
Okay.
I think I'll just talk. Yeah, if you don't mind. So I'm working at Dorsett Hospitality International. So we're a hotel group based in Hong Kong, and we currently have 54 properties in 25 cities with 4 core brands: Dorsett Hotels, Gal by Dorsett, D Collection, and Silka, with more down the pipeline. We actually just launched our first hotel in Australia at the Gold Coast. So if you're there, you can check us out. We also have a strategic partnership with Agora Hospitality Group in Japan and Trans World Hotels in Europe. So for those of you in Hong Kong, you probably recognize us as Quarantine Hotels, because we believe in investing in positive impacts. And although we just started on, our company just started on our sustainability journey, we've actually been quite involved in the arts and scholarship space for years, especially our president, Ms. Winnie Chu. We've actually just launched a partnership with the vocational training school here in Hong Kong on an innovative tech-focused challenge to encourage Hong Kong students to tap into their creativity and to build solutions for the community. And so we'll be funding the winning projects on building better prototypes for their projects. I also have a lot of other projects coming up, so I'm pretty excited to share with you all, but please follow us on our social media to find out more later on. I think a little bit about myself on how I got into the space. I actually initially wanted to be in PR, so like every other millennial, I started my own Instagram page as a hobby to promote restaurants. And I think back then it wasn't really a profession to be a content creator. And so I was really lucky enough to get invited as a restaurant editor for a website in the US. And that really got me into the industry. And so I decided to make the switch over to hospitality school. And then since then, I've been able to live in really great places such as Spain and Thailand. And then through the pandemic, I actually got the opportunity to come to work here at Dorsett. And then the president and I kind of discussed the group's vision. And then we thought that sustainability was a really important topic to include, especially in the hospitality industry. And I think it's a really important topic to be part of right now because it's just more than about climate change. It's also about inclusiveness in the community in which we're here to talk about today. Thanks.
Yeah, amazing. So Natsumi?
Oh, thank you. So what we do is quite different than two of you guys, but our solution is known as a clean tech. And it's not like shiny, flashy thing like technology, AI, or anything like that. But this is something that we all can relate because we solve the dirty pipes and clogged pipe. And sometimes when the piping get clogged or dirty like that, it could cause a health issue for our human health as well. So it's a big problem, and this can cause basically anywhere like hospital, factory, or even normal home or building. So we work with any type of pipes, and our business model now is a B2B. So I've been working with a lot of building constructors and also factory, or sometimes even research people, engineers. And we are based in Tokyo, and we have been selling and having lots of distributors here in Japan, and have sold more than 7,000 units so far. And right now we are seeking to expand into globally, but it's a water pipe, and it's a water like piping. So it has a different regulation in each different countries. So that's our the difficulty right now that we are facing, but we are working on a different product development so more people can easily afford this technology who is interested, because right now about 70 to 80% of the contact coming from about 80 different countries. So we see the huge need, and people are interested in this technology. So that's what we are trying to do. And what I start like working on this technology is because I always work for a startup, and I used to like going back and forth between San Francisco and Tokyo with my first startup. It was a hardware, and I got to meet a lot of different venture capitalists and like different people network. And what I found was there are a lot of good technology from Japan, but when it comes to global expansion or business development, Japanese culture is very different. And a lot of people find from an outsider, like working with Japanese company is not that easy because the culture is very different. So I wanted to find the good technology. So I was searching. I probably did like nine to 10 different projects, but I still couldn't find it. And at one of the events, I met my CEO, and that's how I got involved to this technology, and then like working together. So that's how our journey started. But the technology itself, the product founder has been working on this technology more than like 7 years. But yeah, that's where we are now.
Okay, thank you guys for sharing. That's all such amazing work. So I'll just share my screen again, and we can move on to the second question. So yeah, so just in general, what are some big challenges you faced as a woman in business? And I guess Bauhinia, you can go first again.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have just one page of slide to share for this. Hold on a
Oh,
second.
okay, yeah. So I'll share it.
Um, yeah. So, okay, hold on. But this can be an interactive discussion because I think like, whether we are in startups or in hard tech, clean tech, hardware, or whether we're in hospitality, there are some common grounds that we have here. But I'll highlight a few things that specifically in the venture and startup space, that we still have a lot, some way to go, to have more women and diversity in the space. So globally, as I'm sure you will not be surprised to hear, all male founded startups received 87% of all venture funding in 2020. So that means, the rest of the percentage, they either have gone to mixed teams or all female teams. So, in 2020, that's only like 2 years ago. That's very shocking still. And this is also with the fact that globally people have all been very aware of this issue, that women-led startups are not getting enough funding. Yet, we still have this very low percentage of women or mixed teams receiving venture funding. Why is receiving venture funding really important? Well, obviously, the most important thing operating a startup is to create revenue, right? But then when you need to hire people at very critical moments, or you need just some kind of funding for R&D, or for marketing campaigns, it does make sense to go for venture funding. And so if the money is not going to you, then it leaves you very much shortchanged. So it's really important to realize that on both sides, on the venture funding side and also on the makeup of startup teams, it needs to be balanced, and both need to help each other out. So what's also really interesting is that women-founded startups actually generated 78 cents to the dollar, whereas male-founded startups, and I'm supposing this is all male-founded startups, generated 31 cents for every dollar of funding. So what does this tell you? Women-founded startups are a better bet. They generate more money for every dollar that receive in funding. So why not invest in more women-led teams? And my next question is, when we talk about, so on the right-hand side of the slide, we always talk about Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Steve Jobs in every single interview. When people say, oh, I was inspired by, this Apple product, or, Elon Musk's vision for electrical vehicles is amazing. A lot of these people, whether they're in corporates or they're startup founders, they always sort of mention these three founders. And can you imagine if we had women who were as famous as these people? What kind of impact would it have on young girls and women who would be inspired to create value and inspired to create companies, that will last for generations? So yeah, this is just my thoughts. And also, which is this figure below on the bottom right hand side, actually global GDP would rise by approximately 3% to 6%, which equates to 2.5 to 5 trillion US dollars if women and men became equally entrepreneurial. So this is a huge market to tap. And if more women got into this space, there's a bigger pie to share for everyone. So I think these are figures that we need to be aware of. And to go back to challenges and barriers, I would divide them into external and internal barriers. I'll talk about the internal first, and please chime in, Natsumi, Natalie, or Alicia. I really believe the number one factor is self-confidence, because as women, I don't know if it's because we are socialized to feel this way, but we are always either looking to please a lot of people around us, or we don't feel as confident to voice our opinions as definitively or affirmatively, or when we say we have an idea, we're not sure that we 100% have all the skills to then start a company and run with it. And let me tell you, if you ask any man, they will not have 100% of the skills before they found their company. Normally, that's when you like hire different people or invite different co-founders on the team to help you out, right? But I do believe self-confidence is the number one root cause of a lot of women hesitating to go forward and launch their ventures. And then there's also like risk appetite. I think as women, we are more aware of our life stages, with life planning. Am I going to start a family? What about my money? Do I really use it for this? Do I actually go to the bank, or do I go to angel network to look for funding? So maybe the risk appetite as well. Also, maybe because of socialization and a lack of self-confidence that causes us not to like be as risky, to take risks as men do. And then very briefly, external factors would be the funding opportunities out there. There's a lot of unconscious biases when either you go to a bank, someone approves your loan, or if you go to VCs, male investors and even female investors, they might have unconscious biases and different perceptions of looking at women founders. Networks. So if you're only going to all male networks or majority male networks, they speak a different language, right? It can get quite aggressive sometimes, and they all try and okay, this is a big generalization, but men try and like brag a lot. And so as a woman, sometimes it feels a bit uncomfortable, and it's not as realistic to brag and say, hey, I'm the best, my product is the best, so please invest in me. Or they'll talk about investing. They'll, crypto bros, I'm sure you come across a lot of those. They'll just brag about what they've invested in. And as women, I don't feel like our language fits into this kind of modem. So perhaps, if we had more mixed networks, it would make it easier for women to integrate ourselves and feel comfortable in this space. And obviously role models. We have role models on this panel here, but also I think in the outer world, globally and in Hong Kong specifically, we lack role models, or media simply doesn't shed a light on as many successful and failed female entrepreneurs on the tech side, or on the industry 2.0 side, so that young women can look up and see, hey, if I have an idea, I could be like her too, or she's gone through this path, it sounds like a doable path, I will try and go for it myself too. It actually says a lot to have someone to inspire you. And I think a lack of role models for the past decades is partially hindering us from dreaming bigger.
Thank you so much for that. That was such a comprehensive overview of the various barriers that women face. And I just sort of want to talk about this idea of language a bit more, because I think there's studies that have shown very interesting sort of related to what you mentioned, that when investors interview female startup founders, they actually ask them different questions compared to male startup founders. So they sort of ask questions that are more related to risk, such as what are the biggest problems that you see yourself facing? But on the other hand, they ask male startup founders sort of questions more related to just positive things and returns, such as like, what do you see as your biggest accomplishment within the next year? I think that's definitely a huge problem as well.
Yeah, and it primes other people hearing these questions. And as a woman, when you receive these questions, obviously you take a step back and then you think, okay, I have to tell you about my track record. What are the risks out there? Then it already primes yourself and the investors to think, oh, okay, I have to be risk averse now. But when you're talking about market potential, that's dreaming big, going big, the total addressable market size, these are all projections, right? So when you don't get these questions, then the whole vibe overall is sort of like dampened. And so at the end, they might have the same opinions on your company, but it just still doesn't feel as great a presentation. And perhaps, I think the language, that's something that we need to be very conscious of when we speak to different types of founders.
Yeah, exactly. Natsumi, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I totally agree as well. Because I'm a startup and I have some experience in a way like kind of similar. And I'm the only female co-founder within the team, and all of us, we only 5 of us, and so all the other people is all male. And I mean, they are very experienced and they respect me and stuff. So it's good. But the industry that I work most of the time is very male dominant and the person that I talk to is mostly C-level. So almost all the meeting that I go is all male dominant. And sometimes like when it comes to like we are bootstrap right now, so we're not raising fund, but sometimes when we talk about the long-term like partnership or like, you know, like people who's interested in like funding us, like we just like casually like exchange knowledge and talk about it. And I get one time like interesting question like that that person asked me about like my like life plan, like because I'm a female and in the long term like she might drop out, and if that happened, what's gonna happen, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, like that was interesting. But yeah, I think I mean Japan is very I guess like within Asia like Hong Kong is similar as well, but I think Japan is lower in that way because I think culture wise and there's not good role model like Bauhinia mentioned as well. And yeah, so there are a lot of challenges, but I am a startup, so people do respect me as a startup, like, oh, this is startup, it's a new thing. So like they kind of look at me as more like a startup, not like woman, like entrepreneur. But sometimes I do face like those challenges. So yeah, that's just what I want to tell.
Well, you know, in response to people asking you what are your plans for marriage and kids, you will just say, well, you can ask the same to my co-founders. What are their plans of having a family?
Yeah, exactly. Like
It's exactly the same, right?
Ask me, like
Yeah.
like same for
Yeah.
everyone. Like, but
Yeah.
they're like, oh, what if you pregnant, you can't work? Like, okay, like, what if my co-founder get married and have kids, like, and he can't work? Like, it's the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the approach should be more a little bit different. Like people have more better understanding or so. But as for now, high like leaders and those like position person is all male, so they kind of expect it like, oh, like, yeah.
I feel like in these situations, is best to, and especially in Asia, right? It's also about saving face. So you don't want to come off as being offended. So I think one of the better ways to do this is to like sort of smile, like then turn the question around or make a little joke about it, and then say, look, you know, I'm here now. You know, what do you expect? So I'm committed to this. So I think it's better to like turn it around and then question them instead on their beliefs, in a very polite way to like make them understand that these are their biases, and then move forward, carry on the conversation with something else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't get offensive when they ask me like such a question because it might be like, oh, like she's like short temper or like, but I think that could like lead to like negative. So I just like, you know, like I respect and I have responsibility, so it's fine. Like not like that typical. If you think that's the like typical like thing, you as you're like, you know, like journal speaking or whatever. But I take care of my company, so I'm not gonna just like leave because just something ABC happened. So, but yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes what people ask.
Yeah, and
actually,
yeah.
yeah, I think you both make really good points. I think the key word that I'm hearing that's similar is that lack of role models and unconscious biasness for women in the workplace. I think for me, like, I'm a little bit different because we're more hospitality industry. I think when these things do come at us, I think we can just kind of smile and like let it happen. Especially, I think as Asian women, like, I think we do get quite a bit of generalization of the image of what we should and shouldn't be and how people expect us to behave. And I think I've experienced quite a bit of that on the operation side of the hotel. And I've been put into some very uncomfortable situations, especially in countries where they're not as progressive in terms of diversity and inclusion, and such as, I guess, Thailand. And I think also I've been questioned by my peers a lot on why I strive for leadership roles, even when I was in school. And I think in the workplace as well, I think men would never be questioned for this. I think why not? Why can't women be in leadership roles, right? So I think that's something that's also about language, as Bauhinia mentioned. I think it's about the shift in how we approach speaking about women leaders.
Right, definitely. And I think it's also about what Natsumi mentioned, it's sort of industry as well, where it's sort of like in certain industries, it might be seen as more common to have women as leaders. And I've definitely seen that even in Chicago or just North America in general. And this is sort of to generalize, but I've definitely seen women in more startups that are sort of related to cosmetics or just the beauty industry in general compared to tech. I think this is a big problem as well, where like people sort of self-select themselves out of certain industries.
Yeah. But I also like later on, if we have time, I also have some tips on how to not be man-interrupted as well. Because we know men love to interrupt women.
Yes. Okay, so moving on to the next question. And I think we're running a bit short on time, so maybe we could skip this one and sort of just go to what Bauhinia sort of mentioned. How did you overcome these challenges, or what do you do in these sort of situations?
Yeah, okay. So I think okay, I'll just go through this really quick one. Man-interruption, as you know, that's a man interrupting you when you're speaking in general. But this can also be for like women interrupting you. So say you're in a conference or just like a meeting of a couple of people. When you're presenting, a quick tip to do is say, okay, I'm going to be presenting for around 10 minutes and I'll be covering these things. And I would love to hear your feedback and any of your questions, but let's save it to the end. So then you prime the people in your group or in the audience to know, okay, I expect your questions coming in, but please save it to the end. So if they actually interrupt you in the middle and you've already told them you will answer their questions at the end, they'll come across as rude. So that's one way of doing it, prime them already. Another way is just to say, address that, okay, I hear it, if they interrupt you in the middle, I hear it, your opinions, I understand. Let me just finish and I will address them at the end. So that's a polite way of handling a man-interrupter as well. So this is just like a very light challenge, I suppose. I think, from the venture and startup side, it is not easy, I think, for male or female to start a venture fund, because you need to look for financial backers, multiple ones or single one. This is quite a bit of generalization, but I think if you have a story to tell, and this works for all types of products and services that you aim to provide, but if you have a special story to tell and you really tell it well, and you're covering a market, a part of the market that is underinvested in or under talked about, then it is easier to angle yourself this way and then receive a better audience who might be able to pitch money in. So I think storytelling is a challenge, and especially in Asia, we are not taught to storytell, because if we think about how we learn at school, it's rote learning, and we don't take drama classes. You just have very straightforward Q&A. You don't really challenge the teachers, at school. So without this, it becomes harder to then in later life understand how you can make your personal story and therefore your product and your services interesting. So I know, at least in Hong Kong, many founders, when they start pitching, they go straight into the products and what features there are. But actually, investors are investing in you as a team and as a person. Why you, and why are you producing this product, right? So I think we can sharpen our storytelling skills and have more confidence in shining a spotlight on yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's all super helpful. And relating to sort of men interrupting, like I actually had experience of this yesterday. So it was actually on a chat, like through a messenger as well. And I was just sort of explaining something about a product, and he kept on asking questions and making points about concerns that I would have answered if he just let me talk. And it was just really frustrating. So thank you for sharing that. And Natsumi and Natalie, if you'd like to add something, just go on, please.
I think, oh, okay,
Yeah,
Natsumi can go. Sorry.
you want me to go first or you want to go, Natalie?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, I totally agree with the storytelling point because I do a lot of pitch, and if there's no storytelling, people easily lose interest from the beginning, like this, and people not gonna listen to you. So I have to learn about the storytelling skills, and like because the industry that I work for is very I'm very rare as a woman and go into the meeting or like doing a pitch and they'll be like, does she really know engineering, or does she really know the piping, or does she really know like they just assume everything. So like I have to also like build a lot of knowledge about the engineering and everything, but like if I'm like too logic and too detailed about the technology, like people are just like, don't know what are you talking about, so they're not gonna listen and focus. So I think storytelling is very important. And so I'm having a startup, so eventually I want to build I have an opportunity to build more teams, and I think one of the barriers that women we face in especially in Japan is that we have a time limit in that way, like I guess like within Asia culture wise, like, oh, like by like 30 you have to have a kid, or like you should be married, or like, you know, like something like that, like kind of like a society like pressure. And also like a lot of girls think that way. So I think that's not how it should be, and there should be some like different option, like for example like company like benefit package with for like egg freezing and stuff. Then we don't have to worry about like too much, like, oh, I have to like, you know, like find some partner to like have a baby, blah blah, like to like have a life plan, to like rush everything. So it is true there's not like good role models, but we will be probably with this room. So in the future for the like next generation wise, like I want to build those like potential opportunity for the more women's, and we don't have to like rush into it, and you know, like figure it out more stuff. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, so for me, I think these challenges have never been, I think, an obstacle to my, I guess, career, because I think I had a really good role model growing up. My mom was in like senior management positions in the finance industry. So she was walking proof to me that success is never defined by your gender, but by your results. So I think that's why I've always strived for leadership roles whenever I can. And she also taught me that like working, like when you, the people that work for you, you should never belittle using your position of power. And I think also my boss is also the embodiment of, I think, female empowerment. She's always promoting that in the workplace and making it a point that we are a very progressive hotel industry. Like actually, I think 68% of our female leaders, of our general managers are females. And then our core top level managers are around 58%. So that's quite a big number of women in our workplace. Actually, men are a bit of a minority here. So she's always the first to encourage work-life balance, which I think is lacking in a lot of, I think, traditional sectors where women sometimes are penalized for maybe having family time, while areas like men might not be. So I think from a corporate perspective, leaders need to set the stage to, for example, to be the example for inclusiveness in their company. And you can start doing that by hosting inclusivity training and events to celebrate everyone's uniqueness, because I think we need to remember that we need to have a diverse working pool with different skill sets in order to thrive as a business. And then I think, as Bauhinia mentioned before, like women startups do make more money than men. So I think that's kind of living proof of like women being important as leaders. And I think also employees being able to see that they're being represented and having leaders that look like them, they'll feel more empowered in the workplace and have more ownership of what they do and pride over what they do, and more likely to stay around in your company. And I think companies that aren't doing already, but they should start collecting data around, I think, inclusivity, because data never lies. And if you see that there is a gender pay gap, it's time to ask why this is relevant today.
Right, definitely. And I guess questions for to add on and sort of related to the previous question is, do you guys think that things are going better or improving in general, or are there actually more challenges and barriers today?
Can I just also address one tip, because the whole discussion we have, the theme is on women leadership, right? And I think as women, we have more of the skills in more effectively communicating with empathy, because we use all parts of our brains, left, right hemispheres, more than men. I think men tend to like to compartmentalize a lot more, but because we use both spheres at the same time, it's easier to empathize. And at the same time, we are social creatures, men and women, but I think women are especially adept at this. So in leadership roles, whether at a startup or whether you're like hobnobbing amongst investors or other startup founders, or at a corporation, big or small, seek out allies and seek out your network and start building this way. Because when you are trying to go up in different leadership roles, you always need sponsors and allies and people that recognize you and your uniqueness and what you add value to your team, the product, the company. So if you start building your network bit by bit and make yourself known in positive ways, right? And when you're being helpful, or when you start initiatives that the company doesn't have already, then you can more easily build your network and then be recognized as a leader. Because as a leader, as I'm sure Natalie will attest to, when she was saying her mother as a role model and her own manager currently, it's not about overstepping your power and showing it. Okay, in certain situations that works, to show brute force, but in most situations you are much stronger with a diverse network. And this is very, very much so at a startup, when you cannot operate as a lone island or as a lone wolf. You really need help from like lots of different people. So yes, I think this can be one way of overcoming challenges when people think, oh, you look so soft and feminine, like I don't really see a leader in you. But when you have a group of people behind you who would attest to otherwise, it's easier to then say, hey, I might be soft and feminine, but look at my network and look at what they say about me. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think those are, again, very valuable tips. And I guess, yeah, sort of going back to the question. So do you guys think that in general, there's a trend towards improvement, or are there actually more barriers as sort of the economy develops and there's more positions in tech, especially that open up, which is a very male-dominated field?
I'll let Natsumi go first.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think in Japan, it's slowly, but it's getting better. Like it's not like getting harder, because I've seen more even offline like women community exists in Tokyo, and there are more media out there about like talking about the gender equality or like period or like things that like Japanese culture like don't really talk aloud that much. But like because the media and the social media push like more people are willing to like talk about it more easily. And I'm seeing it's not like as many compared to like the States or other like country, but like there are a lot of femtech startup coming into Japan as well. So I think this is a good trend, but I don't see many like women like co-founder or like startup founder. Like I join a lot of accelerating program or like events and kind of stuff, and I see lots of male founders still. So I hope it'll change, but I think it's starting slow bit by bit.
Yeah, thank you. So did Bauhinia, do you want to, or Natalie, do you want to speak?
Yeah, the thing is, I am launching this alliance for diversity in tech ventures and also startups in Hong Kong, and creating a data report. And that's specifically because the media doesn't talk about it enough. The government recognizes this problem, but doesn't do enough to push these kind of initiatives. It's very half-hearted when they do it. So I think you need to be able to somehow have some leading people who will push for it to gain momentum. So then that will snowball, and the government will recognize the issue and challenges out there for the stakeholders. So unfortunately, because I think the voices are still not as strong yet, there are less of us who are concerned about this in this part of the world compared to maybe Europe or North America. We do have to step up to the challenge and push for these conversations to be out in the public and to do something about it, to show that other people are trying to face the problem, face the music, and lead by example with initiatives. So unfortunately, we have to be a bit bolder in action to do this. It's not just about like hopping onto Twitter and then like talk about it. We actually have to make data reports to show in visualization and figures, but hey, look at how few women startup founders there are in general. So yeah, I think things are improving. There are still a lot of manels out there, and manels are man or male panels. There are many. And I have to go straight to different organizers and say, hey, look at these photos of all of these men. Where are your women? Hey, invite me next time. Or I know like 10 other women who would be able to talk about this topic. So, you know, I'm sick of seeing just lack of women in innovation panels. Yeah, but you have to be very much proactive to organizers to make them aware of this, first of all, and second, to do something about it collectively.
Right, exactly. And Natalie, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, they said it all, but I think it's just, yeah, I think in my sector as well, we're also a real estate developer. And I think like this is still a very traditional sector, and we do still lack a lot of, I think, women on the boards of these companies. And I think a lot of, although it is still improving, I think a lot of the board of directors of like big companies are always old men, just old men, like of 50 plus. I think there needs to be a little bit more diversity, especially when the world is changing very quickly nowadays. I think we need to have people of different ages in leadership roles now, because I think younger people are getting more experience as well, like compared to I think before, and they have like, there are young people running startups and they are qualified for roles that may take 10 years. I don't know, you see on LinkedIn, it's like you require 10 years for a very like mid-managerial role kind of thing. So I think that still needs to have improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, and so moving on to the last question, and we are running a bit short on time. We're scheduled to end in 5 minutes, so we could go over time a bit, but I think we can run through this one quickly if we possibly can. So yeah, so what are some resources that you personally found helpful for businesswomen or women in leadership?
Okay, so I can just very quickly share my screen again. Okay, so here we have locally there are definitely different communities for your resources. So all across ASEAN, I don't know if they're in Japan yet, but they're definitely across Singapore, Southeast Asia, and a bit of Hong Kong. She Loves Tech, it's pretty big. They host regional competitions to get funding for startups. There's Women in Tech in Hong Kong. You can always check out their Facebook, Meta, and LinkedIn pages. There's also Women in Work, specifically in Hong Kong. So this is not only for startups. This is a general, like for aspiring women, but underneath they have different verticals, like women in finance, women in tech, and women in lifestyle, I think, and women in art. So there are different verticals, and there are quite a lot of events. And now, of course, they're virtual, but there are events going on and people meet up. So this is where you can extend your network. And then, you can look to create alliances yourself. You don't always have to like, hey, join a network. You can start something yourself. I recently came across something called Girl Up that some students at Hong Kong University started to empower young women on the university campus. So, every Gen Z, I guess that's what you are now, every Gen Z is very proficient on Instagram. So it's much easier to have a more expansive outreach these days. And then corporates, Visa, UBS, JP Morgan, and they are all quite diversity friendly, given that they are multinationals. So for example, Visa has a She's Next program. They launched it last year to fund women entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. And I'm sure that they have different branches that do this across Asia. So you can also look to big corporates who have corporate venture arms who host these kinds of programs so that you can get a foot in the space. I would also say, look for different types of hackathons. For example, this morning I saw an email from the British Chamber of Commerce. All of these different Chamber of Commerces, they want to invigorate their younger generations. So they will host hackathons periodically. So you can join these to meet more people, make those networks. And, in Chamber of Commerces, you always have big corps who join as members. So you can meet people of different levels that can help you out.
Right, thank you definitely again. That was very helpful, and thank you for like always being so prepared with your slides. And I just wanted to sort of add on, I always found TED Talks really helpful, and specifically there are many that really just aim towards helping like female entrepreneurs sort of talk to investors or just talking about how to overcome some common barriers. And Natalie, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I was just also gonna say, like, maybe build your own ecosystem if you can't find one. And I think, like, if after a conference you see someone that you're super inspired by, I think don't be afraid to reach out to them on LinkedIn, or even just going up to them after the panel and giving your name card. And I'm sure, like, I think most people would be really happy to grab a coffee and share their thoughts with you as well. I think for the male listeners, I think it's important for you to become an ally for women in the workplace. So if you ever see anyone excluded from work in terms of like a social situation or like a potential networking opportunity or even a job promotion, I think look to include the women in your workplace. And I think that would be a good starting point. Yeah.
Right. And Natsumi, do you want to add anything?
Oh yeah, I mean they stated most of the thing, but for the resource why I listen a lot of audiobooks, and it's really helpful, especially like when you're driving or like like taking a train and stuff. And I use my social media to like network with people like overseas LinkedIn, and Japan like more like Instagram. And it's really nice to like connect with like the other like females or like people, the ally like male who's interested in this startup life, or like how's it going. And yeah, like there are a lot of like different group of communities and people like trying to do like, even if it's like small scale whatever, and meeting with them like maybe like offline, or like when they have events like this, and like joining that's like expand like networks. And so it's really nice. And yeah, and that's, and TED Talk is also nice as well. And I went on a TEDx before, so if you want to check it out.
Oh, yeah, check it out. That's great. Speaking about everything in 20 minutes is not easy.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, I also had, just very quickly, Alicia, one more thing to add is create content. I know we consume a lot of content, but if you have opinions and thoughts, one way, an easier way to amplify your reach is to actually make your own content, i.e. like an opinion piece, or just like a very short comment, or like have a poll or something. I mean, don't overdo it and spam everyone, but on your LinkedIn, people are much more amenable to answer and make comments on your pieces. So you can make it quite personable. And then when you have people who are not in your network reaching out to you, that's when you know you can amplify your voice. So definitely do that in creating your own content. And also, I have so many book recommendations and podcasts. So if anyone wants to know, ask me about them, like please reach out to me. I'll put in my email on the side in the chat. Yeah, I love sharing resources this way. Yeah, definitely read a lot, read books. That really helps.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we are a bit over time, so I think we'll wrap it up. But that was a great discussion, and I hope it was helpful for the audience. I definitely personally learned so much from this. And yeah, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for your time. And
Thank you.
yeah, definitely I'll be reaching out to all of you to connect. And I think for anyone in the audience, definitely feel free to reach out as well. And thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. It's great meeting you, Miles and Natsumi and Natalie.
Thank you. Looking forward to the next webinar, and thank you very much for giving up your time. It was very engaging. So appreciate you giving your time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.